Michael Noble cuts across the line. There's a big chase on the plan. Pick up and gets right to it.
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. These are Caribbean Conversations at the Georgetown Tea House. This evening, we're discussing cricket, and we're looking particularly at the current West Indies tour of England. With me, I have a great panel. We have Mr. Basil Butcher Jr. at the top end, Kevin Henry of the top of Cricket Podcast, and Lenny Achaibar, cricket commentator. Gentlemen, welcome aboard, and we're gonna go straight into cricket. Basil, let's start with the good things. So far, for the West Indies tour of England, what have you seen that you say is encouraging?
The first game we got blown out, right? And I said in other quarters following that game, I thought we would have a better showing in at Trent Bridge, and yes, we did. We competed in that game all the way up to 6-1 without loss on the fourth day. We had a centurion. We had a great partnership between the two young Dominican batsmen, Hodge and Atenes. The captain chipped in with a 48, and then the wicketkeeper at the end with 86. I think it was 86 not out. The area where it's most Moti bowling well in the first test was also a bright light for me. But the areas where and also Hodge shown that he batted an hour pretty much in each inning, but I think Hodge needs to add shots to his repertoire so that he would be able to put back pressure on the bowling team, because he's in the shell, he get a 6 and he goes back into the shell. We have to be able to, our batters such as Hodge, and he's young in the not Hodge, sorry, Louis. So he's now starting. And I don't blame the guys, because we have to remember these guys are coming from a substandard cricket structure, West Indies cricket structure today. And West Indies cricket structure is not fit for purpose because it does not produce world-class players that can compete consistently on the world stage. And Hodges, Louis, out of that, he had a good first-class season, right? But whereas in years past, had a batter made that kind of runs in a first-class season in West Indies cricket and stepped to the world stage, you would have seen a closer to more finished product than what he is. And those are areas, those are the areas that were positive for me. You don't want to hear about the other parts. So
we'll get to that. Lenny, what was positive for you so far in the series? Anything you want to develop on what Basil said?
Yeah, I think the series got better in terms of the second match. Historically, if you follow West Indies cricket, they seem to get the best of the series when the last game comes around. So I want to think in a couple of days at Edgbaston, they should have that one pretty much, but they were blown away at Lords. Trent Bridge, they put up a bit of fight. I think Moti was really missed. In Test match cricket, you've got to play a spinner that can give you 15, 20 overs and to use the conditions of the pitch. We saw Shoaib Bashir did exactly that. He picked up a fifer and really put West Indies under pressure. We know And I thought Sinclair would have filled in for Moti, but Moti, let's be fair and honest. Moti is a notch higher than Sinclair at this moment, and I thought Alzari, Seals, Shamar, and Holder. If I were to pull out one, probably I'll pull out Seals, who's having a very good series, 10 wickets in the series so far. But Alzari, his wickets are coming too far and beyond. I mean, you look at his bowling figure in the series, he has picked up 5 for 307. So essentially, he's telling you that if Alzari is the only bowler that plays for a team, and you've given up 307 for the first 5 wickets, your team is going to make 600 on you. And Shamar, we know the Brisbane fever hasn't really gone over yet to England, and so the bowling is a bit of worry. The bowling is a bit of worry. Hey, you can't complain. West Indies made 400 runs just just in the last test. So I think the bowling needs some work. Still missing a top class spinner. They're always important in longer portion of the game as the day wears on. They become very conducive. The pitch wear and tear, and the ball tends to do a little bit. So good, you get a spinner there, can buy you on 15, 20 overs.
Okay. Kevin, what your thoughts on the positive aspect?
Let's start with the question of the selection. They had to select the same team for the second test because you had to give those players a second chance, right? First and foremost, we came into this test series with little to no preparation. West Indies first class season closed out in early May. The likes of Braffett, Mikhail Louis, Kirk McKenzie, De Silva, and a whole host of our players haven't played any kind of cricket since May. So to get to the second test and get that kind of performance is what was expected. Now, the kind of collapse that we had, I thought we should have done a little bit better than that. But up to the first innings, where you had Braffett showing that he's finding the stride, Ateneo is getting his first half century, Hodge playing brilliantly for 120, De Silva, who should be doing this on a more regular basis, that 82 not out, that should be the norm for him, because I think he's better than what he produces.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing right now is West Indies preparing, because typically you talk about early the 90s, 80s, numerous warm-up matches against good first-class opposition, especially in England. You don't have that now. So our players are getting there and you're trying to find your feet. A lot of these players, this is their first time to England. It's cold. They're not accustomed to it. So by the time the third test rolls around on Friday morning, the gears should be going a little bit better. Are they going to win the game? I don't know, but do I expect a better showing than even what we showed at Trent Bridge? Yes, I do.
Okay. Talking about conditions, Basil, from your experience, conversations you may have had with your dad, with regard to the English conditions and what Kevin was just saying, how much of a disadvantage are we at with not, having a few games against the county, enough games against the county teams and things before we actually get into the tests?
Well, one of the things we can't lament on that anymore, because that's the nature of the landscape in Test cricket, and in my view, the ICC has to do something about that, right? Because if Test cricket is the format that is the one that is most not getting the kind of play outside of, say, England, Australia, and to a lesser extent, India. And one of the things, if you're going to get good Test cricket, you can't have teams, because this happens to every team, going into conditions that are not conducive, or foreign conditions, and playing one game before the Test match starts. As I look, India, Australia, all of them, when they go to England these days, they get one game, right?
Okay.
And then it's compounded we had a team filled with guys we would call green mangoes in terms of knowing English conditions. So that also compounds, they don't know really what to expect and so on, even if people talk to them and so on. But one thing I tell you, I mean, Kevin is very, very thing about the next test. But that might be the first pitch that we're going to run into that is green and seams at Boston. So we got to be careful about prognosticating that our guys may do better, at Boston. That is something that is usually you see at Boston. So we hope that it is not as such, because we know as soon as the ball starts to seem around, our batters struggle, because it's something they don't see, at all in regional cricket or even the club cricket for the most part. I remember, just when I started playing club cricket, we used to play with a high test ball, which was a two-piece ball. So here in third division, the ball was swinging. So from third division, you have to learn to play the swinging ball. I don't know if the youngsters today get that exposure. So going to England, and playing and then again, they played against a team. I went through the team, and you had several guys in the 11 had never even played first class cricket, right? You had guys played like 18, 10, 8, 3, 4, so it was like a second string team, but I think that is something has to be addressed by the ICC, that you can't have teams going to different parts of the world and no warm, because then how competitive would the test match be?
Right. Yago, good evening and welcome aboard. What's going on?
Evening,
all
man.
right.
Evening,
We need a little of your expertise here. We were just talking about, the fact that, the guys in England, like Basil was saying, there aren't, too many warm-up matches these days. All right. So in terms of a green team going to a place like England, no real warm-up matches, in terms of adjusting to the conditions, what's your take on what has happened so far with the West Indies team in England?
Yeah, it has been difficult. The first thing I must say is that I think the team is too inexperienced for England. We have too many players who are there who have never played and at first class cricket as they should, and even test match cricket as they should. So they should have at least two more senior batsmen in it. We have messed it up in a way where, in my opinion, the people who are called our stars these days are not playing test cricket. They are playing 2020. Because if you go around and you look and you ask anybody, people like Puran and, a few of the other guys who play 2020 cricket, they are the stars in West Indies cricket today. And they are not playing test cricket. So it becomes difficult. What is the reason why these guys are not playing? It is so tough these days in terms of the money, wherein the big teams like England, Australia, India, South Africa to some extent, they are the dominant teams in the thing, and the sharing of the money is big between those teams. They can afford to pay their players to not play 2020 cricket and not even go to some of the franchise cricket that is being played. While we can't afford to do that. The guys have to make their living on 2020, and the club cricket that they are going to play around the world is where they're going to get their big money, because the West Indies can afford to think these players for the big money that the Englishmen can give, and the Australians and the Indians. So we are in for a serious hiding. We are not going to be there for a long, long time. And if test cricket continue to be played among all the cricket playing nations in the world who we are playing now, I believe probably it might go to England and Australia and India and South Africa might be playing test cricket. But the others is going to drop out after a while. You're just not going to be able to feel a team that is going to be competitive. And if I talk about this now, I predicted it a long time when 2020 cricket started, that it's going to kill test cricket, basically. And I believe as the generation change and turnover, that is what is going to happen. It's not going to be here much longer than that, because the players today are more involved. When you ask them about test cricket, they don't want to bother with that. It's too long. It's too hard. You're not going to deal with it. But let's get what is there now. They are there and they are playing now. We had a one innings that a few of the players stood up and batted fairly well. I didn't expect them to fall so badly in the second innings of that test match because the wicket was still a good one and still try. But England is a funny place to play. Now, regardless, when you play in London, it's probably the best. You know, you play the Oval or Lords. But overhead condition too can create a lot of problems for you. So it depends on how the condition overhead is. For instance, in the first test when we played in at Lords, for the first day and a half, the condition was extremely terrible, and any team would find themselves in problems there. So I couldn't really blame them too tough for that because the condition was really, really tough. And if you don't have the skill and the experience of playing there, you're going to run into a lot of trouble.
And Yago in the third day, when overcast and playing under the lights, when the ball started moving, Root and Brooke showed the skill, because that's when West Indies could, they held up West Indies there, and then even turned back the pressure on our guys, where that was probably one of the worst batting conditions in that test match, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so I mean, had it been on the other foot, we would have struggled mightily in those conditions. And you're correct, and you're right. You're so right. I hear about that, and my father used to tell me, you could be batting, and then the thing change, and the whole conditions change. So how you batting nice, next thing you know, the overhead clouds come in, next thing the ball starts swing and seam. You're like, no, you come in the Caribbean, cloud could come in, nothing don't change, right?
Correct.
But here you in a condition, soon the cloud come in, the ball start doing things. And as a player that don't have that experience, that is a tall order to overcome.
You have to be able. You have to be able to look at the condition while you play, because it's not a place where you go and things are nice and you're beating up this ball and things going. I was batting at Leeds in 1976. I was batting very well, and just after tea, I came back after tea, and this ball started to swing around like a boomerang. So I heard that there's a river behind it somewhere.
Yes.
But in the evening, every evening after tea, that ball started to swing around like no man. So it's a situation where you have to have the experience, where you have to looking at each ball, you have to be each ball on its merit as you go along. So the condition is really rough, and as I say,
thank you, Yago.
Yeah?
Kevin, you wanted to ask Basil something.
Basil, in regards to the way Root and Harry Brook batted, right? On which I thought what they did was really great. Outside of the boundary hitting, what they looked to do was break up the lines and lengths of the West Indies bowlers. And when we are faced with the same situation, that is where we are failing. We are like sitting ducks. We stand from the crease and we play. We stand from the crease and we play. Soon enough, you're going to get a ball with your name on it.
Of course. And that's where, as Yago was saying earlier, that's where the experience. These guys grew up in those conditions. So they're accustomed and understand what tactics and strategy and tools they have to employ. And look, the thing I was telling a guy, and a guy trying to tell me that Root's inning was a block this. I said Root's inning in the second inning was a master class of test batting.
Exactly.
You saw all the elements that you want to see in a test inning.
Yeah.
When these guys were bowling, as Yago would tell you, I always tell people the best players in cricket, when you bowl straight to them, that's the worst ball to bowl straight.
Yeah.
They work you to both sides of the wicket. You gotta bowl them in the channels and that kind of stuff. And you could see how Root was just picking our guys off as they kept bowling straight on the onside, working them to the offside and whatever. I mean, and the guy played some shots. I mean, was top shelf. I mean, if you as a youngster telling a youngster to emulate something, look at the player, how he put together his innings. Root's inning in the second inning is one that you would point that youngster to. You know,
Exactly.
I thought it was an inning of high quality.
Yeah.
Yep.
Agreed. I agree, but you know you have to look at who you're dealing with. The Root is probably one of the greatest.
He's probably the greatest
batsman of
English
all time.
batsman.
You know,
Yeah.
so you'd expect that. I think our bowling was too inconsistent.
Yes.
You know, it was too inconsistent. The line and the length were too inconsistent. You have periods when these guys bowl fairly well, but on the whole wasn't consistent enough. You know, and that was the big deal. But we have to still give them credit in the second innings to give us under 400 runs to make. They didn't do all that badly getting on that wicket.
I thought
they didn't do all that badly getting at all. We should have made a much better effort in the second innings. You know, if we had lost getting up to say 350, 300, 299, 300, and we were bowled out for that, we could have said that the effort wasn't bad, really. You know, when we look at it. But
let in your view.
The crash and burn like that, it was terrible. You know.
Go ahead.
The fourth day, the first hour or so, was the best we bowled in the whole test match.
Agreed.
That was the best we bowled in the whole test match.
Yes,
if we had that kind of
bowling,
bowling,
we came back in the game. And we came back in the game there.
If we had that kind of bowling throughout the test match, it would have been a closer game. England had to really fight to win this test match, despite the amount of mistakes we made. So that's another positive for you there, Anansi.
but you know, we have to be very careful how we really destroy these guys, especially playing in England. I mean, they just is inexperienced for it. You know, for first couple of batsmen, it only Brathwaite really play any amount of test cricket over the first 5 or 6 batsmen. I mean, in England, it not going to work like that. Even when we played and we had a great batting lineup up to number 6. A lot of times it only take 3 men to get going, to make some runs and you're home. You know, one guy get a big 100 and another guy gets 60 or 70 and you get 400 runs.
There was a staggering,
you know, because the guys are going to fail in the batting lineup. Everybody is not going to make runs all the time, you know. But
there was
we were good enough that we had at least 2 men who, if they got in, can make enough runs for us.
Right.
There was
let me bring in Lenny a little here. Lenny,
1-5 and
86
was to Brathwaite. So the other 4 total up 9. So that gives you the clearance.
It is tough. You know, it is.
I just want to touch on 2 things. One, we spoke about Basil and we all talked about how crowded the calendar is now, so that teams, it's a luxury now to go in and play. I remember when I used to follow cricket back out of England in '73, Lawrence, when you played there, you guys used to play about 11 or 12 matches before the first test starts. Right? Sometimes 14.
Not before. Throughout the tour.
Throughout the tour, we play about that much.
Exactly. Correct. Right? Before correct. Correct. You know? So, and like Basil mentioned, you got to get used to that. The cricketing calendar is too crowded now.
Yes.
What I feel, in my opinion, what teams need to do, that big block of 2 months that is taken over by the IPL, I think countries need to organize their own bilateral tours and do their own thing. Whoever goes to the IPL, let them go. You know what happened this year? New Zealand had a few players that went to the IPL, and they figure, you know what, Pakistan is always free because they don't go to the IPL. Let's arrange a full tour to Pakistan, or I think they went to New Zealand. And you know, New Zealand did not lose that series, although they had 6 players that went to the IPL. It seemed to suggest that it can be done, especially West Indies. Look, West Indies during the month of the IPL still need to get on with their program. Organized bilateral tour. Pakistan is free. Somebody is free. They're missing players. You're missing players. As it relates to West Indies, how many players will West Indies miss at the IPL? None. Nobody. No. Hetmeyer doesn't even play Test now.
Joseph.
Shai Hope.
The 2 Josephs would have been the only ones.
Exactly. So in my opinion, countries, not only the West Indies, will have to move on with their program. And so that 2 month block that is being reserved for the IPL, teams
IPL,
need to get on with their program. Play with
right.
what you have. Everybody is affected. And secondly, I want to pick up that what Yaga said. The West Indies team is too inexperienced. Look, let's cross the players up. Let's do a tail of the tape of the two players. For example, Louis, the guy has only played 9 first-class matches. When you look across to Zach Crawley, he has played 117 first-class matches. You look at Kirk McKenzie, he's only played 24. His partner, the opposite end, Duckett, he's played 144. You look at Ollie Pope, he's played 104. Atanazi has only played 41. The entire top order, man for man, like Yaga mentioned, only Craig has really played at the top level for a while. My problem with that is that are our guys really ready? Right? And I'll answer that question. No, we are not ready there. We are absolutely not ready there. And look, when you look across at the selection of the West Indies team, right? I'm really confused why Shai Hope and Ruston Chase is not on this tour, right? Because we know the importance of having an off spinner in a test where you bowl a long period of time, and there's so much pad opportunities. A man at 4 short leg, a man like a little leg gully. You get a good off spinner that bowls on a pitch that is wear and tear like Bashir did. You're in business. Why no Chase? And when you look at this West Indies team, for example, in my opinion, you've got to put a left-hander somewhere at the top of the order. When the bowlers are lining up these right-handers, they get a chance to really work them out. And I know our left-handers have not come to the party. We had Raymond Reefer batting at number 3. We had John Campbell not too long ago. I mean, all these guys, Tej Narayan Chandapal, but they haven't made runs. So you've got to put in a left-hander somewhere along the line. I don't know how Kirk McKenzie is going to do here, but it looks like Kirk McKenzie is a different player from Australia and England. And that just goes to show that the conditions are so different.
But you spoke about the left-handers, but we are two promising left-handers in the team. Atenes and young Thingyers, it's two talented left-handers.
One got to go at the top.
They just need some nurturing and
correct
some experience behind them, or if they can be in the pavilion to learn a little bit from some of the experienced players. One of the bad things we had was when we treated, I think, Bravo very badly. You know, I believe Bravo was one of our fine batsmen who came in after Brian Deere. I mean, early on in his early years, a lot of people compare him to Brian O'Hara, you know, with what he was doing. And then he got himself into some problems with the board, and they didn't suspend him. They just have him there and just never pick him for a number.
In limbo.
And they wasted him.
Yeah.
You know, and
correct.
even when the other day he came back and make a lot of runs in the local cricket, and we thought that he would have been picked again, and they just discarded him. I think he was still young enough then that could be given an opportunity to build back something, because he would be one of the more experienced batsmen that we have at the time.
Correct.
But that didn't happen. And then we just leave the floodgate now with all these youngsters coming in here now, lamb to the slaughter. I mean, when I played and when I played, we forced ourselves into the team, but then we came in with Sober and Can I, you know, these guys who were there, these were bad guys who we came in to help out. You know, and then when we took the reign, these guys went down the order and we took the top order. And then as we get strong and start to play well, you had the Greenwich and Viv Richards came along.
Right.
Then we had to go down the line and
correct.
these
Right.
So we're always over the years of solid batting, and don't talk about the bowling. The bowling was just awesome over the years. So, you know, it's a different it's a little bit harder for these guys now because they don't get to play any top class cricket. Basically, our season in the Caribbean is very short. They are not going to get a contract play county cricket in England that easily now. And then when you go on a tour, especially to a place like England, you play one warm-up match and then you're in a test match.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
that is tough business, I can tell you guys.
Yes. Yep.
Right, right.
It's very-
Kevin, you wanted to ask Lenny something?
I just wanted to respond to a couple of things that Lenny said.
Yeah.
That he pointed out when he did the tail of the tape. One of the things is the English county season is much longer than
Yeah.
West
True.
Indian first class season. So naturally, you're going to find a young player would have played 50, 60 first class matches in a matter of a couple of years, as opposed to the West Indies, where you're only going to play at best 7 matches.
Yeah.
Now,
It's 7 versus 14.
exactly. So
Yeah.
when you look at that, like take Jamie Smith, the wicketkeeper batsman for England, in that Lord's Test, and that was probably one of the most difficult conditions that both teams will experience to play in. Right? Look how easy he made it look. Now I want you to take a look at his stats. He played almost 60 first class matches before he made his debut.
Yeah. Correct. 6 to
Most
1
of our
to be
players have
exact.
been around for a few years and still they're nowhere near there.
Yeah. Kevin, I just want to interject also. You see, that's the other thing with our selection method. We saw in this series, Brendan McCullum basketball and all this process and Ben Stokes and everybody. They pulled out a couple of players who really made an impact in this series. Jamie Smith is one. And bearing, we heard all the news that Jamie Smith doesn't even keep for Surrey.
He doesn't.
And there are 2 other keepers before him. You've got the Yorkshire boy, Bairstow,
There's
and
one.
you've got Wokes, right? And you got the other boy, even Bashir, who picked up 5. Bashir is not the first turn spinner at where is he from? Somerset.
Low.
Jack Leach. Jack Leach. But look, they've thrown the opportunities to Jamie Smith and Bashir, and these boys have really rewarded them handsomely. And that's one of the things what I realized with West Indies cricket. We're too conventional. We got to think outside of the box sometimes. We're too conventional. People can predict what we're gonna do. You take, for example, Moti in the first test, right? Why is it? And I'm okay. I'm not relating to that test, but I'm just thinking out loud that why is it sometimes, especially with West Indies cricket, that if you got a spinner in the team, you made sure that all the fast bowlers have bowled 2 spells. Everybody has bowled a rung, and then when there's nothing happening, you throw the ball to the spinner. Right? Why is it we can't factor in? Well, the spinner is part of the armory, right? Moti is part of the armory. Throw the ball at him at some point, right? Why do we have to wait 2 spells from Alzari, 2 spells from Shamar, and then when nothing is happening, Butcher, we say, you know what, throw it over to to the spinner.
Well, I tell you something, and Yaga could attest to this. Captaining spin bowlers is a different skill than captaining fast bowlers. A lot of captains in West Indies cricket lack the skill of captaining spin bowlers. Hence, we have done a poor job as a West Indian cricket entity in
I hear that.
developing our spinners, because we have had a lot of guys who were talented spinners and we expect them to be Lance Gibbs the first time they go out and play, right? It
Correct.
don't work like that, right? And we never allowed any of them to nurture. But when I look at, I always use this example. Y'all remember this guy playing for South Africa, Nicky Boye, left arm spinner.
Left arm spin, yeah.
When I look at people like McGarrett and them, they could bowl like Nicky Boye, but we play people like McGarrett, play them 4 or 5 test match, and they ain't come up to the scratch we expect, and we throw them. Whereas Nicky Boye played over 40 test matches for his career. And you can't say it was a fast bowling thing, because South Africa at that time had one of the best fast bowling attacks in the world. So it is a problem with how we nurture spin. And with Yaga, I read the unforgettable book. I read where Parry was talking about how when he played on those tours you guys went on, how he was captained differently and used, unlike when he played for the West Indies. So it's a lot of captains can't captain spin. It's not an easy. And there's one thing I must say about Stokes. Stokes is brilliant in his captaincy of spin.
Basil.
I just say, you know, it was when we were great. I mean, Lloyd had played some spinners. We had Trinidad, and Trinidad was a place where it always spin a bit more there. And had played some of the better Trinidad spinners at the time. Lloyd had played probably the better Trinidad had spinners in the West Indies team at the time. I think with Jumadine and these guys. These guys had played, and they never get the job done for him, and we lost.
No.
and I think he made a pledge at that time that he's going to lose the fast bowlers.
Yes.
So it was difficult for any spinner. If you notice, during the whole of that era, we had part-timers, people like him, and even Carl Hooper, when we get on a little bit, Carl Hooper was the other spinner. We very rarely play spinners during that period of time when we dominated world cricket. We very rarely did. So most guys who were spinners in the Caribbean, they played, but they know that they probably would not have played. Even if they get a game, they weren't going to play too long.
Right.
Yeah. Correct.
Right. Talking as the great fast balls we didn't have anymore. I think we should have been a little bit more discerning in really helping to develop hopefully some world-class spinners. But we never did that. We give them a few games and we discard them. Bring the next one in, discard him, right? You know, so as a result, we haven't been able to develop them, you know. I mean, the last one was Bishu. Bishu had a decent career as a leg spinner, but then he went out of favor.
Hey, Basil. So you mentioned Bishu, and I wanted to talk about Bishu. If you remember on that 2017 tour, there was a game that Jason Holder didn't bowl Bishu. Period. He had him running from fine leg to fine leg. Which
correct.
I thought was one of the most demoralizing things that you could have done to
a wicket taking spinner, because
exactly
leg spinner is a guy you pick to take wickets. He is an attacking option. He's not there to hold. You don't pick leg spinners to hold, right? And then you got a leg spinner in the team and you never try him. I mean, yeah. And I think also Sammy overbowled Bishu. When Bishu first came into the team, he wasn't strong enough and he broke down.
Yeah.
Because if you remember, when Bishu first came, he used to bowl the googly more than he did when he came back. Because I guess maybe he wasn't as confident, you know, coming back from the shoulder thing. But before he used to bowl the googly much more than he did after he came back. But Sammy run him into the ground because the guy bowled well, and Sammy said, I got this tool, I can bowl it till he wear out. And unfortunately, you know.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen. I want to touch on something that Lenny spoke of, and I think maybe it's something in terms of we can really look at. And you know, Yago, you would have said that. Look, it looks like basically Test cricket is on the way out. So you know, but the point that Lenny brought up in terms of, all right, we know the 2 months of the year that right now is just totally dedicated to IPL. What can the other nations do to develop their cricket during that particular period? How would you approach that? Say as a cricket administrator, Yago, how to use those 2 months that everybody knows is IPL.
You're muted, Yago. You're muted.
Have a governing body, which is the ICC, and India is a big part of that these days.
Yes.
And if you notice, the IPL is the only one of these 2020 tournaments that everything is shut down for that tournament.
Yes.
Yeah.
So remember, they are the ones who set the fixture. West Indies just can't get up and say, well, all right, we're going to do this and we're going to do that during this period of time. In the situation where ICC, you are in that. For me, I believe, I don't know if this is crazy, but I believe that the other test playing countries should try to stand up strongly against the ICC and try to
I
say,
agree with you 100%.
we have to be able to share a little bit better where in our players we can deal with our players a little bit more, because our market is very small and
Yes.
we are not going to get what we require to play our players in the modern part of the game now, for them to be able to dedicate themselves to playing only test cricket. We are not going to be able to do that. And to the other countries, Bangladesh and all that small countries, Sri Lanka and all of these countries are suffering. So unless I think we team up, all of the other countries team up and work in a way where it better we get out of this thing and just play 2020 then if we're not going to get a better deal in the whole situation. The top four just cannot dominate it in that way and keep them up.
I agree with you,
this is my take.
Yeah, I agree with you. I made the statement recently when we saw how this World Cup was so skewed towards India. And people telling me, oh, the Indian market, this and that. I said, okay. So if the rest of the world say, all right, as Yaga just stated, we gonna come together. India, y'all can't play by yourself. You telling me those Indian corporations that use cricket to expose their brand globally would not still want to be involved in sponsoring cricket? Because they want to expose their brand globally, right? But it's the spineless jellyfish, but lack of backbone. Because I've heard this from people inside, where every time a coalition starts to form to stand up to India just throw a tour at them or some dollars at them, and boom, the coalition fall apart, because all of them just thinking in a short term rather than looking long term. Because the current financial division, the division of the finances, ICC events, is untenable, right? You can't got the richest getting the most and all the others so-called scrunging, because we all live in the United States, and all the professional leagues, the TV money for the league is divided equally among each of the franchises, which has allowed small market franchises to be able to compete with the large market. So this notion of a small and big market is no longer an issue in American professional sports for that reason, where small market teams can't keep their players. And something of that sort has to go in world cricket. We can't got India getting close to 40% of the money and the rest got to divide up amongst them.
Kevin, I think you touched on that in one of your podcasts. You wanna?
I did. The issue here is Australia and England, who are part of the big three. They don't seem to be willing to give up what they're getting, right? Because if you look at it, they're the two teams that India play the most also, right? In terms of bilateral tours, 5 test matches. Mm-hmm. So they're not willing to give that up, right? When you go to Australia and you look at the stands these days, the stands is filled with Indian people. It's not filled with Australian people. Same thing when you go to England, the stands are filled with Indian people. So everybody's just looking at their bottom line. They're not looking at equity throughout the cricketing world, right? So that there is the issue. And I said it before. In order for there to be any kind of equity in the cricketing world right now, just like Yaga said, just like Basil said, there is a need for all the teams to stand up and say, hey, what the hell is going on? Take, for instance, back in, I think it was late January or early February, it was announced that India going to get a semi-final at Providence.
Yes.
How the hell no one else stand up and say, how do you know that? How can you say that you're having a semi-final? You're sure to play a semi-final as long as you get there. Yes. And then when I look at your fixtures, for your first round matches in the World Cup, who do you have in your group? You have the United States, you have Canada, was that Pakistan?
Yes.
Yeah, Pakistan was there.
Yes.
We already knew what was going to happen. How come no one said anything? India is guaranteed a semifinal. So why wasn't England guaranteed? Well, they were going to play at Providence. Why wasn't Australia guaranteed?
Lenny want to kick. Lenny want to kick in there. Did you hear any whispers, Lenny?
I hear. I mean, um, look, cricket right now makes money on broadcasting, right? Broadcasting is where all the money is. I recall in the 1980s, right, when you had all these televangelists, Jimmy Swaggart, R.W. Shambach, Billy Graham. Back in the days when we had radio.
You're really taking me back there.
Yeah, and I said that because,
70s, man.
yeah. Well, 70s, 80s. I mean, and the reason I brought that up, I became a born again Christian in 1983. So I think that. But back then they used to want you to subscribe to their radio broadcasts. Radio was big. Shambach, Billy Graham, Jimmy Swagger. By sending $5 there, $3 there as a gift to their ministry. And what ended up happening, we all know they became multimillionaire. And because they realized that, look, I'm preaching in North Carolina, but I want to send this message to Africa, or I want to send this message to South America. And radio was the broadcasting medium to really reach people, right? Similarly, television, because now television has so evolved into a mobile phone. We walk around, we buy broadcasts, we watch broadcasts. There's a demand for broadcasts. So whoever can monopolize that thing, and with 1 billion people in India, you know that once you put something at India convenience, you play 10 o'clock in the morning at India prime time, you're tapping the market that is about 1 billion people. Well, not everybody likes cricket, but look, Indian people or people from India, they only like one sport. It's not like America where they'll watch NFL or they'll play baseball or stuff like that. They're predominantly cricket. So the market is there. The market is there. The viewership is there. They consume cricket. And like anything else, where the broadcast power is, the money follows. And where the money follows, the players follow. So that's the cycle. And so that is why, look, we talk about test cricket. Is it on its way down and stuff like that? It comes back to the broadcast goes where the money is, the player goes where the money is, the crowd goes where the money is, and it is what it is in 2024.
Listen, I think regardless of how big you are, we understand, yes, India is big, and when you are the top dog, you dominate most of the things. But when you look back at the World Cup, all of your games get 10:30 in the morning.
10 o'clock.
Every one of your games was played at 10:30.
10 o'clock in the morning.
10 o'clock. All those
Yes.
games was played. Good God, man, at least make 2 games don't play there or one, at least. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
right?
Yeah.
Because we have to look at cricket wherever we play in the world. If we go to Australia, we have to watch it in the early morning or the late at night.
Correct.
If we go to England, we have to wake up 5 o'clock in the morning to watch the game.
Correct. Yeah, look.
Gentlemen, let me ask, and we're coming close to the close. Let me ask a psychological question now. We're looking at this same issue. We're looking at the same issue of time and how it was adjusted in terms of the India market.
India market, yeah.
I know of no other sport that does that, regardless of how dominant a particular country is, whether it's soccer, whatever.
Football don't do that.
All right, I've never seen that. Even big old USA, right? The most they might do is to have a delayed broadcast, right, to meet prime time. But nobody has to adjust to meet the US viewing market.
Correct.
Is the Indian approach ultimately tenable? Will it really ultimately last? Right?
No.
You know,
No.
are they going to create some rebels to say, you know, well, y'all gonna play cricket by yourself? You know, your take,
Yeah. Yeah. I have said it. The current status of world cricket is untenable. It's untenable, right? I mean, look, West Indies, we have a proud cricketing tradition, and one of the blocks towards West Indies being able to compete on the world stage more consistently is the lack of resources, the lack of facilities. How do you get those things? It costs money. So if money is not coming into the kitty per se, how are we going to be able to compete, right? We obviously, governments have to play a role in the Caribbean because facilities and so on is usually the governments that got to build them, right? But if you have a situation where our cricket is so dependent now, it only, I mean, I've got this from the West Indies CEO, and he said it publicly multiple times. The only time the West Indies board makes money on a tour is when India comes to the Caribbean and England. Nobody else. Everybody else that comes to the Caribbean, it's at a loss. Also, the current model where you go on a tour and all the revenue goes to the home team. We got to get some kind of different mathematical equation, you know, that the touring team would get something also for going on the tour. ICC created this model years ago, and and since that model got created, you can market to the also to the slide of West Indies cricket, because when we were good, everybody wanted us, everybody wanted a piece, but I don't think we were as good in marketing and negotiating real good financial rewards for our great teams going to play all over the world. People made more off of us than we got back from them.
Exactly.
Basil,
Correct.
Basil, check this out.
That is what is lacking today. If we had the players who was as talented and had the ability, we would probably
Yes,
have a little bit more talk, because everybody would still want us. But
correct.
really, right now, our players are not as good because the facilities, as you rightly say, Butch, is not there to develop our players as much as we should be doing in the modern game today. You understand? So it's more
Yeah,
difficult for us now to be here to develop the players like in the
exactly.
olden days.
We in a hard, we between a rock and a hard place.
A very hard
Yeah.
place
Yeah.
too. Hold on, Lenny. Kevin wanted to say something. Kevin, go ahead.
This early up in this year, you know, Basil spoke of CARICOM governments and stuff, right? And this is where the intersection of sports and politics happens, right? So early up in this year, I think it was that in March or April, they had this big symposium.
April,
right?
Yeah,
And we had all the icons there. We had all prime ministers, all these dignitaries. And everybody waxed lyrical about what West Indies used to be, right? Everybody talked about, we're talking about Lawrence Rowe, they're talking about Joel Garner, they're talking about all these fine moments in West Indies Test cricket. Here's where I have an issue with an event like that. You come and everybody get emotional. Everybody pour their hearts out, right? What is really going to happen after, when all that emotion subsides?
The follow up, yes.
Exactly.
Nothing.
So here's the thing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I agree with you. We have heard all the talks. We have been talking for decades now in West Indies cricket, right? We don't want to hear no talks no more. We want action. is action. Until I see action, I don't want to hear no talk because we have exhausted all the talks.
Here's the thing.
Can't agree more.
Here's
All
the
right.
thing.
Yeah.
If you notice, in Jamaica,
If-
we never even get a world. We never even take a World Cup game in Jamaica.
Exactly. I
We
mean,
never even
I
take a
mean,
World Cup
I
game
mean,
in Jamaica. You know?
Yaga. I mean, we talking about population. Imagine, because
Yeah,
Jamaica is
yeah,
roughly half of the English-speaking Caribbean population,
exactly.
and you have virtually half the Caribbean population had no opportunity to partake in the World Cup playing on their home soil. I mean, these are things. I mean, I know that the West Indies board is making an effort because this year, the last first class, you played a bunch of first class games in Jamaica. They took the South Africa series there and so on. But the government in Jamaica is the one that's intransient because, you know, they come up with every excuse. And the thing about it, I think the Jamaica Cricket Association is also at fault because they're the ones that's supposed to show to the government in the data how valuable it is to the Jamaican economy and the Jamaica brand to play World Cup matches in Jamaica. Because when you play the World Cup matches in Jamaica, for example, you got the whole world watching Jamaica. So now the Jamaica brand, which is a great brand, is getting even more exposure, right? So I mean, they have to make sure they put together a plan and proposal and show to the Jamaican government it is worthwhile for them to invest in cricket because we will never get an Olympics in the Caribbean. We never gonna get a football World Cup in the Caribbean. This is as big as it would get. Cricket World
Right.
Cup.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah. Basil.
Correct. And
Basil.
we never participate in it, which is, I believe it was a sad thing, you know.
Yeah, and it's the
Not
second
to
time, Yaga.
participate.
In 2010,
Yeah.
Jamaica didn't participate neither. When they had the 2010 T20
Yeah.
World Cup, Jamaica didn't participate.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, 07, we did participate in 07.
In 07, yes.
That
07.
was the first time we were bringing it there, you know.
Yes,
But
yes.
the last one,
When Bob
that it
Woolmer,
was.
unfortunately, the stain was in Jamaica. Bob Woolmer died in the hotel in Jamaica.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
But
Let's get ready to close off. Let's get ready to close off. We are at the top of the hour. Gentlemen, I'll just go around the room. We headed into the third test. Two-part question. What would you like to see, and what do you think you will see? Starting with you, Basil.
I think that Mackenzie. I think Mackenzie gonna get dropped. I would drop him because I think Mackenzie right now confidence is as low as it could be, and to put that guy in again and so on, I would just for that reason. Because what I've seen of Mackenzie is what I saw throughout the first class season is a continuation of what I saw. Because the one thing I did when the guys came back from Australia, I made the point. I will be carefully noting every one of the batsmen that came back from Australia, how that learning would have translated to their first class performances. I wanted to see these guys take that experience from Australia, albeit it's different conditions. But when you got four of the best bowlers in the world pressuring you over after over, something must click in there that you could take now. You go down to the lower level, right? That's what I look at. I watched all the games Jamaica play. I want to make sure I see what Mackenzie. I was disappointed, right? Hodge had some moments. He had 150. The guy from Justin Graves had several 50s. Sinclair was the only guy that came back from a batting perspective that took those learnings and made some serious runs for Guyana in the first class, right? So I think I would sit Mackenzie. They got this guy McCaskey around the team. Let's see what Mr. McCaskey could do, because it don't make sense having McCaskey there. You took him to Australia, now you take him to England. Let me see, rather than you keep him there, right?
Not ready.
No, but here, None of them are ready. None of them are ready.
I'm going to tell you just now.
You got McCaskey or Imlach, right? Those are the two guys. And because McCaskey is an opening batsman and battery, I think there's a chance they may pick McCaskey. And the other thing, obviously, Sinclair going to be out for Moti. But then I also heard that Sinclair, that ball that hit Sinclair, he suffered a hairline fracture on his forearm. The bumper that he get there, right? So regardless, he is not going to play. Moti should be back. So those are the two changes I think will happen. Well, I know Moti for sure, but I don't know if they're going to change the batting lineup. But the other thing is, I'm looking for our bowlers to bowl more consistent. I want to see more what we saw in the last morning of the test match from the word go. I don't want us to let them England batters get off, and because when them England batters get off and put that pressure, it's like a snowball coming down a mountain. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and our bowlers is almost like they don't know how to stem the flow. So we got to get off and jump. I mean, we jumped on the English, got a wicket in the second ball, and then the dam opened up in the second over with Seals and Duckett, right? So those are the two things I hope to I look to see, and I want to see us improving with each game and competing. So hopefully we can, even if we're not winning this game, let us take it in the 5th day.
Okay, Lenny.
Yeah, I want to think that might be the two change. Mackenzie might set out, and Moti, of course, comes back in. So I think that might be the change. The problem is, even if McCaskey comes in back again, we were talking about how green this top order is. That compound the issue even more. Mackenzie is struggling. Mackenzie looks like he's good on bouncy tracks. We saw him having a good tour in Australia, but we know in England, the conditions are totally different, right? So I think Mackenzie might sit out, and of course, somebody got to make room for Moti. So I want to think that might be the change.
Okay, Kevin.
Throughout the series, I don't think England has bowled that well for us to be like, well, this is a damn good bowling lineup. I think they've done the basics well, right? The England bowling lineup has done the basics well, and the West Indian batsmen haven't done the basics well. That is the reason why we're struggling, right? In terms of our batting lineup, even before Mackenzie went to Australia, I didn't believe Mackenzie. I don't believe he's ready for Test cricket. He's not ready for Test cricket. His technique leaves a lot to be desired. He does them 2 feet that he got don't move. In England, you're a sitting duck. You understand?
Yeah.
And if we are going to replace Mackenzie, you can't look to McCaskey. McCaskey didn't do any better than Tashan Chandapal in the West Indies first class season. You understand? In that warm-up game, he didn't look like he belonged in England, period.
And what's interesting, he has played more cricket than anybody else, barring Craig Brathwaite, in England.
Yeah. So if I'm going to replace Kirk Mackenzie, I am looking at Tevin Imlach, who is technically sound. You understand? That's who I'm looking at. I'm asking Alec Athanaze to step one up, go at 3, because I think he's good enough to bat at 3 or 4, and I'm sticking Imlach at 4 with Hodge at 5. We keep hold at 6. Obviously, Sinclair has the hairline fracture. From the time I saw that, I saw him got hit. I was like, that is not good.
That's the first thing that when he got hit, when I saw it, my first reaction, I hope he hand him break.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. So naturally, Moti coming back, and I really hope Craig Brathwaite is proactive with Moti. Moti's a very dangerous bowler.
Correct.
Very dangerous bowler. And he has to be brave.
He can be.
So what I'm looking for in this game is an improved performance. That's all I'm looking for, is an improved performance, because obviously we've lost the series. This game has to be looked at as preparation for the 2 test series that starts next week. against South Africa.
Also, don't forget, all these games you're playing for points in the World Test Championship. So they know
Dead rubber.
No, there's no
let
dead
this
rubber.
game go by. Points every game count. And
Yeah.
so if you really want to be competing this World Test Championship, you gotta play hard every game to get the points.
Yeah.
Right now we at the bottom of the table with the points.
Very good. Yago, what do you hope to see for the
Well,
third?
I agree with most of what the panel said about the probably changes. I had thought that we needed to be a little bit, because the team is young. I think Mackenzie is not a bad player, but sometimes when you're out of form and you're not playing well, you don't move going nowhere, really. You know, you look bad. I thought the second innings, because Anthony had played so well, they would have made him bat at number 3 the second innings of the game.
Mm-hmm.
I thought sometimes you have to give a guy a little bit more breathing space. Number 3, that tough spot to bat.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and normally your best player really come in at number 3, basically.
Yep.
So
From a West Indies perspective,
Mackenzie was going, the young talent, I would have gone to Anthony as the second innings and asked him to bat at number 3, free him up a little bit. Because of where we are now, we have lost the series. I'd probably talk to him and give him another shot. Anthony is 3, Mackenzie 4. Both is back. That is what I would have loved. That's what I'd love to see. I believe he's a young side. You have to give him an opportunity. You know, he has failed so far. I think if you ease it, bring him in at number 4, try to give him a little bit of breathing space and see what happens. Because probably from here on in, after the series, we might not hear about him anymore.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue with that neither. And I would say this. One of the problems to Thiago, unfortunately, in this modern game, there's so much into these roles. You know, the roles. So you see, Mackenzie's the number 3 batsman. You know, we so rigid in these roles. And the sport is not supposed to be so rigid. You have to have pliability. The best teams have that fluidity where you can, because a middle order batsman supposed to be able to bat from 3, 4, 5, 6. You're a middle order batsman. You should be able to do all of those things. So to pigeonhole you're gonna just bat a 3. Nah. We gotta be a little more flexible. I mean, the same nonsense we saw in the World Cup with the T20 with Mr. Sami, and he rolls and rolls and rolls.
Yeah, you know, we have to be flexible a little bit with these guys. We have to even with the bowling. So, earlier in the attack, probably we could make him open the ball. You know, this guy has been phenomenal. You know, why we can't make him bowl first?
Exactly.
You know, why we can't make him bowl first? You know, you have to make it flexible.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, that's a point.
You know,
that's a point.
a little bit. You know, I believe you have to work it up a little bit. You can't be just so stereotyped in terms of this is here, that is here, this is here, that is here. No, sometimes you have to, you know, shake it up a little bit, turn it around a little bit.
Yeah, generally, I think West Indies cricket is that at that point where we should, you know, we should explore options and not be pigeonholed, you know. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. Kevin, do tell folks how they can watch the Top of Off Cricket podcast.
Hey, so fellas, I got a podcast that I do on YouTube right now as it stands. It's called the Top of Off Cricket podcast, where I talk about everything West Indies cricket. Right now, I'm talking. Right now, we're on tour, so I'm talking about that. But do check it out. Top of Off Cricket podcast. I'm there every week. Check me out, man.
All right. And you're gonna tell us a little about the Lawrence Rowe Foundation before we close.
The Lawrence Rowe Foundation.
The Lawrence Rowe Foundation.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, most of the guys know. Most of the guys know a little bit about it. In that, what we do, we try to do a little thing to help out former players who has gone in some tough times, whether it be health reasons or whatever it is. where we can, the foundation can help them a little bit here and there. So we put on a yearly event to try to do that. We get some of the former stars to come in. I try to put on a game, but with how busy the guys are now, the younger ones, I can't get nobody in the younger thing to join the game, you know.
Too much
And the older
T20.
guys who I played with that thing, they get too old to play.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know,
Um,
so it's sometimes difficult to put the package together to make it be attractive.
yeah.
People who want to come and deal with it, you know. So this is some of the suffering that we have. We have a foundation going, and you guys can go on and do Lawrence Road.org. We can go and any donation can do it. It's forward the card and it's help former players.
Right on.
Yaga, just before you run off, I was watching something that somebody has your bat from the 302 innings. Yeah,
Yes,
and he said he's not giving back.
yes. And there's a great friend of mine. Somebody told me about it, you know. Somebody told me about it, and I said, nobody can have my bat that I did.
Yeah.
Nobody can have it. But then when the person showed me the person, I said, oh yes, my God, it is really true.
And
you know, but
right, and also and also Clive.
And I'm sure if I need the back, you will give it.
Yeah, and for all you folks, also Clive Lloyd is having a 80th birthday. They're having a cricket match planned in Brooklyn, August 27th, I think it is. So
August 24th.
Who's birthday?
24th, yeah.
Clive,
Clive Lloyd.
Clive 80th.
Okay.
They're having a game.
They're planning something big for him.
Yes, they're having a game
Yeah,
in
that should be a great occasion. When is it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, they got two. Well, just like you think, they got two old timers teams playing.
What format are they using? What format are they using? It's going to be a 5-5.
Maybe 20 overs.
A 5-5. A 5-5. Yeah, it should be a lot of fun for the senior citizens. It should be nice for the ones who want to remember some of the great times.
Yeah, a lot of nice old time cricket talks.
Yeah. That is what it is, no cricket talk. And gentlemen, we don't want to hold these guys at the standard of what we had set back then. I mean, it's so difficult to do. You know, a lot of people try to tend to want to get back those glory years from these guys. And it's very, you know.
Yago, at your game, I was telling Randy, I said, you can bowl here. Somebody gonna run up and give me the ball and I will go.
Yes. It is still a lot of fun when you're around these guys and you hear the cricket talks from everybody's point of view, you know.
I had a great time. I had a great time.
It has been super. Yes. You know, just like the book that you quoted, the Unforgiven, wherein the guys talk about the tour and you know, and it's fantastic, you know. I mean, a lot of them flatter me. I never know some of them think about me with the way they did, you know. But it's great, you know. It has been
yes.
Yeah,
okay. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Right. Thank you for taking the time out to join us. All right.
Yeah,
this has been Conversations at the Georgetown Tea House.
All right, man. We are talking,
gentlemen.
Good night.
Take care now, man.
All right.
Good night.
Good night, guys.
So Michael Noble, cuts across the road, there's a big chase in the front, and gets hold of it.